Hi, this is Stacy from LS583. I'm coming to you tonight from sunny tropical Pittsburgh. I'm a bit bundled up because our furnace is broken as well, and it's very cold here. So I apologize if the space heaters we have running mess with the sound or anything. Hope it turns out okay anyway. But here is my book talk on Rites of Passage. So, hello again. My name is Stacy, and I'm here today to talk to you about Rites of Passage. You've probably noticed something about your life recently. It is full of these things. During your young adulthood, you're likely to experience many milestones, including but not limited to going through puberty, moving up to high school, moving up to college, learning to drive, celebrating your quinceañera or sweet 16 party, getting your first job, participating in a coming-of-age religious ceremony like confirmation or a bar mitzvah, having your first romantic relationship, joining the military, voting for the first time, and so many other highlights and achievements that all have to do with more freedom and more responsibility. Basically, the life you are living or have lived at age 12 is not the life you'll be living at age 19. Big changes are going to come. You may have experienced some of them already. Some of them are awesome, and some of them are pretty rough. But the thing you can be certain about is that no matter what, in some form, they are going to happen to everybody. And that, the universal nature of rites of passage, mean that in YA literature, they are a very common theme. Today, I'm going to talk about some books that provide good examples of rites of passage and how they change people. Some of the characters in these books know that big changes are coming, and they resist them. They prefer things the way they've been. Some think they know exactly what to expect, but it turns out that there are big surprises waiting for them. Each of these books presents a unique story of someone who is moving toward adulthood by unlocking major achievements. I hope they entertain, inspire, and even reassure some of you who are experiencing these big changes as well. The first book I chose is Matched by Condie. This book, published in 2010, is the first in a trilogy. The second book is called Crossed. It was published in 2011. And the third is called Reached, published in 2012. It's one of many science fiction dystopia series out there right now, but at least at the end of the first book, it's not quite as action-oriented as The Hunger Games, Divergent, or The Maze Runner. It's definitely still a book about rebellion, but the characters find different ways to manifest it. The world that Matched takes place in is a world where the government has taken the burden of choice away from its citizens, claiming that they will be happier with fewer options. The Society, which is what the book's society is called, has a list of 100 approved paintings. Knowledge of the rest of art history, all of it, has been eradicated. People are allowed to choose from 100 poems to read or study. The rest are gone. People are guaranteed a lifespan of 80 years, but right after their 80th birthday, grandparents invariably and suddenly die. And teens from the approved castes of society receive one government-approved match, perfectly compatible with them in genetics and personality, and that is the person, the only person, that they can marry. This is the situation that Garcia finds herself in at the beginning of the book. You don't have to read very far to learn that Cassia's match is very close to home, her best friend, Xander. She's pretty happy with this arrangement. Most people in the society marry people they've never met before. The story might have ended there, with a peaceful and happy ending, if it weren't for just one small computer glitch that shows Garcia an alternate possibility. For a moment, she sees another face, a face that she also knows, but which belongs to somebody she could never be matched with. This split second of uncertainty makes Garcia start to wonder, what if she chose to look at, to read, or think something that the society disapproves of? Eventually, in the book, Garcia comes across one of the forbidden poems, Dylan Thomas's Do Not Go Gentle Into That Good Night. Matched is the story of people who decide to take that advice to heart. The matching ceremony is a rite of passage that nobody has thought to question in many years. It marks the beginning of a person's adult life, but in the process, it completely removes the freedom that is supposed to come with that increased responsibility. Are there any rites of passage that you feel forced into? And what would you do suddenly if another choice became possible? Something to think about. The second book that I would like to recommend is Beautiful Darkness by Garcia and Margaret Stohl. This book, also published in 2010, is the second entry in the Castor Chronicles series, following 2009's Beautiful Creatures, which was made into a movie a few years ago. It follows the continuing adventures of Ethan Waite, Lena Duquesne, and their friends and family in Gatlin, South Carolina. In the previous book, readers learned about the world of castors, an ancient family of supernatural magic users in which Lena plays a very important role. Lena experienced a major rite of passage in Beautiful Creatures. She went through a ritual called the Claiming, which determines whether a castor's magical powers will draw them toward good or toward evil. Lena's claiming did not go as planned, and she ended up in a very liminal position that represents unknown territory in her family. Nobody really understands what Lena is going through, and to make matters worse, she lost one of the people that she trusts most in the world as a result of her claiming. In Beautiful Darkness, Lena feels very alone and very overwhelmed. Despite the attempts of Ethan and her other loved ones, Lena begins to go off the rails a bit. She starts experimenting with a new personality and dangerous behaviors to mirror the loss of innocence and safety that she's experienced. She rejects a lot of the people who were part of happier times. The people who have experienced similar suffering to what she's endured are easier to identify with now. And in this book, Lena is on the way to another major rite of passage in her life, but now she lacks the support structure that got her through the first one. Rites of passage can change us so much that we can barely recognize ourselves anymore. We may want to turn away from memories of the way things were before, because it seems silly that we once held certain things and values dear, or because the memories are too sad. People who were once the center of our lives may be now on the edges. Is it better to burn bridges or to keep a connection with the past? Is there still a fundamental part of us that remains the same when we pass into a new phase of life? The third book I would like to talk about moves more into the realistic fiction than the last two, which were in the supernatural fantasy, dystopian science fiction area. It's a book called Marcelo in the Real World by Francisco X. Stork. This book, published in 2009, tells the story of Marcelo Sandoval, a teenager whose mind works differently than those of other people that he knows. He's been told that he resides on the autism spectrum, but he considers that to be an oversimplification. The way he thinks and experiences the world is unique in any case. Marcelo has spent his teenage years doing very well at a special needs school, and he hopes to finish his senior year of high school there. However, pardon me, Marcelo's dad has a deal to make with him, and it doesn't sound like it's going to work out very well for him. Marcelo has a choice. In order to stay at the school he's used to, he has to spend the summer working in the mailroom of his father's law firm. His dad wants him to gain experience dealing with the real world rather than the controlled environment he's used to. Marcelo's experience is a lot more than just his first summer job. He also has to get used to things like taking public transit and dealing with coworkers who may not be sympathetic to his situation. He needs to learn how to read people's emotions and intentions, and his learning curve is steep because he meets people whose motives are less than honorable. He finds that even people he thought he knew very well may have secrets. As Marcelo's summer continues, he begins to realize that getting to stay in his comfort zone might not be as important as doing what's right for others. Rites of passage broaden our horizons. They often do this by making us feel very uncomfortable for a while. But the trade-off is that we emerge from them with a better understanding of ourselves and where we are in the world. The best rites of passage help us find new ways to connect with our communities. What big changes have you wanted to postpone as long as possible? But once they've been made, do you feel the same way? The last book I'd like to talk about today is The Ocean at the End of the Lane, by one of my favorite authors, Neil Gaiman. It was published in 2013, and it was one of the nominated titles for the 2014 Alex Awards. This book begins with a funeral, but the event that drives the action is a death that happened decades earlier. The unnamed narrator of the book witnesses a suicide as a boy, and from then on, nothing is the same. The dead man's final wishes haunt the living, attracting the attention of a harmful entity that needs to be stopped. The narrator finds allies in the form of a family up the lane, a grandmother, a mother, and a girl, all with the ability to transcend the boundaries of reality. People who have studied Greek or Celtic mythology might find some interesting thematic connections when groups of 3 women like this turn up, sort of the maiden, mother, crone sort of thing. As the boy and the 3 women work to close the gate that was opened, he learns that nothing is certain. His home, his family, and even his own self can be invaded by dangerous influences. He learns to distinguish truth from illusion, and he learns the value of difficult sacrifices. Throughout the book, he leaves childhood behind and learns that reality is a much bigger and much scarier place than he thought. However, the author never lets us forget that hope and strength can sustain us, and that there is life and rebirth even in the presence of death. The understanding of death is a particularly scary rite of passage. It's completely unpredictable. We don't know when it will strike, and we don't know who we will lose, a grandparent, a classmate, or someone even closer. This book made me think of Harry Potter and the appearance of the Thestrals to people who had witnessed a death. Even though this book is steeped in magic and myth, a simple truth underlies the action. The understanding of mortality and loss is one of the things that move us into adulthood, but we also learn that life continues, and it can still be amazing and magical despite its fragility. So these are just some of the books that show how life shakes up our foundations and challenges us to become more than we are. I hope you enjoyed my book talk, and I hope that you'll head over to the library and check out some of these interesting titles. Thank you very much.